This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Regina League.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. We broadcast here in the South Charlotte area, and what I love to do is talk to local business owners. Today, I'm excited to meet Trina Finch. Trina sells insurance. What a brand name. That is awesome. Welcome, Trina.
Thank you so much, Regina, for having me.
Sure. It's so evident in your name what you do. I love it.
You know, when I started this business, I was so surprised that the domain was available in all of the socials, and I couldn't believe nobody else had thought of it.
Well, it's very, very clever, and I'm excited to learn a little bit about you. So I noticed first you're an independent insurance agent. What does that mean?
So many insurance agents are what we call captive with an agency. You know, the big ones, Allstate, Nationwide, State Farm. And while those are wonderful brands in and of themselves, me as an independent insurance agent, I'm contracted with at least 50 different carriers, which means I can represent, I can find the best solution for your unique situation. I'm not pigeonholed into selling you a specific product. I can find the product that you need that best suits your needs.
That's amazing. So I noticed just by looking at your website, you deal a lot with life insurance, which I do have some questions about that because I think a lot of us overlook that. And
Correct.
Then you can do all the other normal things like property, casual, auto. So you work with...
So actually, I do not do any property, casual, or auto. I
only
do
Okay.
life and health. That's
life and health.
Life
Gotcha.
and health. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. I'm glad you cleared that up. So let's talk about life insurance, the different types, even, some of the misconceptions you see.
So first of all, Regina, 49% of consumers don't have any life insurance at all, which is very scary. I think we've all seen our social feeds inundated with GoFundMes for people who have passed away suddenly or been diagnosed with, terrible illnesses, critical illnesses, terminal illnesses. And the sad thing is, there are insurance policies that can protect you and your family that are incredibly affordable. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's not affordable. And one of my favorite posts on my socials, it kind of breaks down and shows you a basic term life insurance policy, which we can talk about what the different types are, but term is kind of like the entry level. But a basic term policy can be about the same a month as a bottle of wine or a dinner out or a fitness class. And so most Americans overestimate the cost and they don't think it's affordable. And then it's a little intimidating to call up, State Farm and say, hey, how much is insurance? And so it's one of those things where they just put it off and put it off and put it off. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where once you need it, you can't get it. And so life insurance protects your family in case something happens to you, but there's also all types of different policies that can protect you while you're still alive. And so there's term insurance, which is just your basic.
And what does that mean?
So term means you purchase it for a term, typically 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And so with that, you lock in, I want $200,000 in coverage for the next 20 years. And so for 20 years, your rate is the same. You pay for 20 years. At the end of that 20 years, it's over. And you have no more coverage. And then you have to reshop for another policy at your new age 20 years later. So term is really great for, let's say you want to make sure that, your assets won't be paid off for the next 20 years. So you get a term policy to cover. If something happens to me, the house will be covered, the cars will be paid off. But in 30 years, I feel like everything will be paid for, so I may not need it going forward. So term, it serves a very specific purpose, and it really is the most affordable of all of the life insurance coverages. On the other end, we have whole life. With whole life, the premium is usually at least 2 or 3 times more, but your premium payment is locked in for your whole life.
Oh, I didn't
And then,
know all this.
so then typically the whole life policies build cash value over time so that you do have something to show for it later on. And then, if you need to access that cash value, depending on the policy and the carrier, then you have the ability to do so. So it's an asset, if you will, that you've invested in all this time. Then there's something in between what we call an indexed universal life policy. It's more expensive than term, but typically less expensive than whole. And this is a really beautiful product. It's the most powerful insurance policy that you can buy. You lock in a rate, you have a coverage, but the cash value that builds is actually tied to the stock market. That's the part that's indexed. And so
Oh,
it's able to grow, your cash value is able to grow over time as the stock market grows. But there's a floor. If the stock market is
drops, dips,
drop,
yeah.
your value doesn't drop. So it's a great, you can look at it as a high yield savings that's also tied to but it's an insurance product, so you're putting money in, your cash value is growing, and then you still have a death benefit if something happens to you. The other beautiful thing about a index universal life is most of them come with a living benefits option. So let's say you have $200,000 in coverage and you're diagnosed with a terminal illness or a critical illness. You're actually able to pull from the face value of that policy while you're still alive to help you with your living expenses, your medical treatment, and those types of things while you're still living. A lot of people say, well, I'm not going to get insurance and just leave it to other people.
Right.
This
Right.
Right. This is a product that can actually help you. And if you use it while you're living, then what is left over that you weren't able to use is what would go to your beneficiaries. So index universal life, incredibly powerful. And the younger that you get into the policy, the longer you have for that value to grow. And so you can actually become your own bank is one of the buzzwords with index universal life, the younger that you get into that type of policy.
Can that type of policy be used if you have to go into dementia center, assisted living?
So if you have two assisted daily living activities that you cannot do, if you become incapacitated, you can use the face value to pay for whatever those daily needs are. Yes. And depending on the policy and the carrier, they have percentages. Usually it's somewhere between 50 and 90% of that face value that you can go ahead and pull and use while you're still alive.
Well, you just taught me a lot right there that I didn't know. Obviously, I'm one of those that doesn't have life insurance.
Oh my gracious. Okay, so
Yeah.
we need to talk. It just takes
Yeah.
a few minutes. It's incredibly painless. And a lot of people, can I ask you a question? Am I allowed?
Sure. Yes.
Why? So why? What has kept you from putting that into place?
I was covered by my ex-husband there for a while, and then, just went through some life changes. And it's just something I hadn't thought about, because this might be a misconception, but I don't owe money. I don't have children. So I was just thinking I didn't need it.
Right. And that is a very, very common misconception. Who would be responsible for taking care of you if you do pass?
Yes, that is something to consider. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is definitely something to consider with that. So I'd love for us to have a conversation. And that's the beautiful thing. It's having a conversation is no commitment. There's no obligation.
Yeah.
And, as a former educator, I was an educator for 20 years in the classroom, K through 12. And so I love this job because I can educate people and help them understand. Sometimes it's super scary, right? And there's all of these different products out there and you don't even know where to begin. I love to educate people and help them understand what they need, why they need it. And then usually it's a lot more affordable than you think.
Well, you do so much. What sets you apart from other insurance agents?
I think because I do have so many tools in my toolkit, and I can do the term, I can do the universal, I can do the whole life. I can do cancer policies. Most people don't know that you can insure yourself against getting cancer or getting having a heart attack or a stroke.
I just learned about that. Yeah.
Yes. And so I don't represent just one carrier. I represent at this point about 50 carriers. So I can really, like I said, find that custom solution for you. And that's what sets me apart, because so many insurance agents are captive to a particular product, a particular carrier.
Yeah. So let's talk about health insurance. What's happening? Any misconceptions you want to address in that?
Absolutely. Mostly in the health insurance space, what I deal with on the individual level is I just help people with the marketplace, help them navigate the marketplace. Sometimes it can be a little scary to do on their own. Open enrollment has ended. However, there are still qualifying events that will allow you to get a marketplace plan outside of that open enrollment, such as if you switch jobs, or if you lose previous coverage, if you get married, if you get divorced, if you have a child, if you adopt a child, if you move states. So there are quite a few qualifying events that will allow you to acquire the marketplace insurance. And marketplace really does have some fantastic plans, and a lot of people are afraid of it, or they just don't know enough about it. So we can just have a free conversation to see what that would look like for you, your family, through the marketplace. And then I also work with businesses to help them provide health insurance benefits to their employees on a group level. And then I also help I help businesses provide their employees with accident insurance, with short-term disability, with cancer, with group life, that are all payroll deducted. So it really is a benefit to the employee and a benefit to the employer. So I love to work with individuals, and then I love to work with employers to get health insurance solutions that are affordable for them and their employees.
I just had a thought. Do you have to get doctor to look at you? I can't think of the word right now, but before you figure out your life insurance plan?
That is a fantastic question. We call that paramed or medical history questions. So there are quite a few products out there that have an express underwriting. And they just ask you some questions, and then they do a quick check of your prescription history. So there's that category. Then we have a full-blown, you have to do the blood draw and the urine test. Typically, those are for your higher amounts. Also, your rates are usually lower if you're healthier. So it's worth it to go through that if you're super healthy, because we can get you a really, really low rate that blood work and urine shows that you're really healthy. And then we have a range of products. A lot of people think they can't get insurance, life insurance, because of previous health problems. I also have carriers that will insure people who are in those high risk categories, so that we could at least get some type of coverage to protect the family in the event of the passing.
So is there a capped age where it's too late?
No.
Okay.
We like to joke around and say that I do have some carriers that, like, if you have a pulse and you're not in the ground yet, we can find you a policy. I know that's terrible to say, but
No,
yes, I do.
Valid.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you can insure children, right when they're, right after they're born. And so the beautiful thing is when you insure your children, that rate is locked in. If you buy them a whole life policy, that rate is locked in for the rest of their lives. And so it's a
That's
gift.
a great gift.
It's an amazing gift. I post about that on my social media. It's a wonderful gift to give. And let's say, okay, I commit to pay for it till you're an adult, and then they just take over once they, become an adult. But they have locked in amazing coverage at a super, super low rate. Those index universal lives are also fantastic gifts for children, because by the time they get to adulthood, they can borrow money from their cash value to put a down payment on a home, or to pay for college, or to start a business. So very, very powerful products that people just don't really know about.
Well, Trina, you are a wealth of knowledge. Tell our listeners how they can reach you to ask questions.
Absolutely. So you mentioned my business, Trina Sells Insurance. I have that everywhere. So www.trinasellsinsurance, TRINASELLS insurance.com. That same handle is on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm not doing any dancing on TikTok. I'm sorry. Perhaps one day, but I'm very, very easy to get a hold of. If you want to email me, Trina@trinasellsinsurance.com. I'm easy to find.
Well, I love your passion and you are so knowledgeable. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Regina.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpsouthcharlotte.com. That's gnpsouthcharlotte.com or call 980-351-5719.